You guys ready? All right, so first off, I want to thank everybody for coming. I am Dave DiPietro, New York State Assemblyman. I represent this district. And I want to say thank you to all of you for standing, I know they're not filming this, for standing on the wall, putting your life in danger, especially with what happened. And it's time for answers, and it's time that the governor and the Democrats and the majority do something. No more talk, no more coddling these prisoners. It's time. So I want to welcome everybody here. And first off, to give us an overview of exactly what happened on Sunday, the tragic events, I want to bring up Ken Gold. He's the Vice President of NYSCOBA for the Western region. Ken?
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Ken.
And thanks, everybody, for coming. About 9 o'clock Sunday morning at this facility back here, Collins, officers responded to an incident in an area of the facility where an inmate was attempting suicide. They did everything they could. They did their job as expected. They called a response. Numerous officers from around the facility, when the response goes off, respond to this area. They went in. They were doing life-saving measures on this inmate. And while they were doing that, slowly but surely, different members, as they were doing chest compressions or whatnot, they started feeling lightheaded, dizzy. One officer actually had to be relieved from what he was doing to go vomit. Later on, after the incident kind of subsided, all 11 officers that had to respond to the incident were transported to ECMC. Prior to being transported, officers were Narcaned, numerous officers, multiple times being Narcaned. They end up at ECMC, hazmats there. It was something that I've never seen in my life before, where you would think these members wake up in the morning, they're going to go in. We know we don't work with the best clientele. We know stuff could happen, but to think you're going to go and attempt to save someone's life and end up in ECMC because God knows what they were exposed to. To this minute, they still don't know what they were exposed to. The nurses and the staff at ECMC did a great job with them. Thankfully, everybody was discharged later that day. Results are still unknown at this point. There's a lot of speculations, whether it's synthetic marijuana or fentanyl. We don't have definitive answers, but I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the fact that while this was going on, a jail still needs to run. Not only did the members that were working still at that point, that weren't being transported to the hospital, they didn't know what's going on. You had members coming in, other officers from home, leaving their kids' softball tournaments, leaving their family. And this is the same facility that we're talking about, that these members here get mandated every single day. This exact facility makes sure that they don't get their first RDO, their first regularly scheduled day off, That's what they endure every day. They don't get 2 days off like everybody else does. But these members, at least 20 of them is what we heard, came in on their day off. And furthermore, what's equally disturbing is the fact that amidst all this exposure, this facility still decided that they wanted to run the visit room, meaning the inmates' families to see other families. Notwithstanding the fact that we don't even know what's going on in the facility, if it was safe for those visitors. They don't have the staff to run it, but members are coming in from home, leaving their families so the inmates can see theirs. It's downright disrespectful and unacceptable. Furthermore, this is a microcosm of what's going on in the prisons every single day. Short staff, the HALT Act, the laws that are being passed by uneducated legislators, it needs to stop, because at this point, we keep saying it, someone's going to die. They narrowly escaped this one. It could have happened, but it's going to happen sooner or later, and someone's got to be responsible for that. So thanks, Dave, for setting this up, and everybody for coming.
Thank you, Ken. So thank you for being here today to address a pressing and urgent issue, the safety and well-being of our correctional officers. This week, 11 correctional officers and 1 nurse were hospitalized after being exposed to fentanyl at Collins Correctional Facility. This incident is a stark reminder of the daily dangers faced by these brave men and women. However, it is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the systemic problems plaguing our correctional facilities across the state. The real issue at hand is the chronic understaffing and plummeting morale among our correctional officers. Albany Democrats, led by Governor Kathy Hochul, have neglected the needs and safety of our COs. Instead of addressing these critical issues, they have chosen to prioritize a progressive agenda that focuses more on culture wars than on the real-world impact of their policies. I see this firsthand. I'm on the Corrections Committee, and I'm dumbfounded and astounded at the idiotic, moronic issues and bills they put up in Albany that totally try to protect these criminals and make them think that they're innocent and law-abiding citizens, and at the same time put our people in harm's way. Our corrections officers are forced to work double, sometimes even triple shifts because the system is stretched so thin. Honest, hardworking COs are bearing the brunt of this neglect, while those who abuse compensation, take advantage of the system, go unpunished. This leaves dedicated officers overworked and underappreciated, leading to unsafe work conditions that put their lives at risk, as we just saw. It is outrageous that the rights of inmates are being prioritized over the safety and concerns of correctional officers and their families. The threat of prison closures looms over everyone's head, including the public, who are also endangered by such decisions. Putting the voices of inmates before the safety of those who guard them is not just wrong, it's a grave injustice. This year's state budget is a glaring example of this neglect. It failed to address correction officer safety, offers no retention incentives, no pension reform, and makes no effort to bolster correction office numbers or morale. This is an insult to those who risk their safety every day to keep our communities safe. Governor Hochul and her colleagues have allowed criminals to roam our streets and correctional facilities with minimal accountability. Their pro-criminal policies, such as the HALT Act, have only exacerbated the situation, leading to more dangerous conditions for our corrections officers. The news of 11 officers being hospitalized is a direct consequence of these negligent policies. Members are breaking under the oppressive weight of mandatory overtime. Members report every day for their 8-hour shift, only to clock out 16 to 24 hours later. This happens on a daily basis, sometimes 3 to 4 times a week. Plus, they are routinely called in on their off days, making for a very unsafe, stressful environment. This year, we will see record-breaking overtime. But what is even more alarming is 2024 is going to shatter all past records for violence in our facilities. Inmates are emboldened by a lack of consequences for their violent actions after Democrats took away all protections for our officers. Members are certain someone is going to die inside the walls and fences due to a failure by our governor and, of course, the Democrat majority. Over 1,300 incarcerated individuals have been assaulted by other incarcerated individuals just through today. Assaults on our officers is at an all-time high. Needed to be treated at 2 local hospitals for injuries sustained in 2 inmate attacks that occurred 10 minutes apart outside the mess hall at the maximum security correctional facility. The first assault happened as an inmate was leaving the mess hall. For no apparent reason, he turned and struck an officer in the face. A second officer administered OC spray with no effect. The officer then was assaulted and they were transported to the hospital. Keeps going. July 5th, 4 officers were injured at Green Haven Correctional Facility. An inmate attacked one officer and injured 3 others when they attempted to combat an after initial assault. These officers, it says they were just walking towards the inmate, and the inmate fell off. This is just part of what's happened in the last 3 weeks. Coxsackie, New York, the month of June saw an escalation of violence at the medium security facility. 2 officers being injured by 2 inmates, multiple inmate-on-inmate fights that resulted in 3 inmates being cut with weapons, contraband recovered during approximately a month period, 1 month. At this one prison, 11 inmate-on-inmate fights occurred with 3 inmates, cuts to their face, 3 assaults on staff, 11 weapons recovered, drugs. Just a few. July 11th, just a few weeks ago, 12 officers were injured at the medium security correctional facility. 8 inmate attacks on staff, sending officers to the hospitals. July 24th, just 2 weeks ago, 5 officers in Stormville, 5 officers and a sergeant were injured at the security facility in a series of inmate attacks in late June and early July. 1 officer and the sergeant needed to be treated in local hospitals. The inmate struck the officers in the back of the head. Just the other day in Stormville again, August 5th, 8 officers were injured at Green Haven. 4 inmates attacked staff in an assault that lasted several minutes before they were able to subdue the attackers. They need to be transported to the hospital. This is not a one-off. Because of the HALT Act, because of the leftist policies, this is the norm now. We cannot allow Albany Democrats to continue hanging our correctional officers out to dry. It is time for Governor Hochul to acknowledge the real-world impact of her failed policies and take immediate action to protect our dedicated corrections officers. We need a comprehensive plan that addresses staffing shortages, improves morale, and ensures the safety of our correctional officers. The public deserves to know the truth about the dangerous conditions in our correctional facilities and the neglect from our state Democratic leaders. They deserve our respect, our support, and most importantly, our action. It's time for Albany Democrats and Kathy Hochul to stop playing political games and start prioritizing the safety and well-being of those who protect us every day. Governor Hochul, you have failed us. But you have the power to fix this entire situation. First, instruct docs to immediately enact the same emergency protocols that were implemented during COVID. Guarantee RDOs, that's regularly scheduled days off. So the staff can rest, decompress, and spend time with their families. Next, utilize your emergency powers to suspend the HALT Act. It is indisputable that this act passed in 2022 directly correlates to the skyrocketing violence. Facilities, as a result of HALT, have become even more unsafe. Proven fact. Next, stop further prison closures. Contrary to what you were being told, closures have been proven to fail at providing a long-term fix for staffing issues and immediately make our prisons less safe. With that, I would like to introduce our esteemed Congressman, the Honorable Nick Langworthy.
Thank you, David. Our Assemblyman Dave DiPietro has been a leader on these issues from day one. And we're also joined by Assemblyman Joe Giglio. You know, they're on the right side of this fight. And when Dave called me yesterday and asked me to come here, I said, absolutely, we cleared the schedule so we could be here. I want to thank Kenny Gold and the incredible corrections officers standing here today for their bravery, their heroism, and all they do every single day. You don't hear about these stories on the news, and I appreciate all our members of the media coming here, and we have full attendance here today. That says something. This story needs to be told because, I never flinch when it comes to supporting law enforcement. But we can't forget the men and women that protect our jails, And those corrections officers need that same level of respect. And they have been disrespected time and again by officials in Albany, and it's got to stop. They are the true heroes. They are on the front lines of dealing with some of the most challenging situations and hardened criminals. All too often, their efforts, their hard work, their sacrifice is taken for granted. You heard Dave talk about how many hours and shifts they're mandated to serve because of the staffing issues. They don't receive the same level of attention as the officers on the street because the public is not exposed to it. But it's critical that they do, because they're doing true public service, and it's a really hard job. And as you see, there could be a lot of life and death situations on a daily basis in a jail. It's hard for many of us to imagine the enormous pressures in the weight of dealing with criminals who have already proven that they do not have respect for the rules of society. Many of those don't respect safety or the value of human life. And there they are, day in and day out, ensuring safety and order inside our jails and prisons. So their safety must be of the utmost concern to all of us as elected leaders. And I want you to take attendance as to who's here and who's not here, and who votes for this garbage and who doesn't. Yet we've seen the safety of our officers in these jails completely eradicated by dangerous and asinine laws like New York's HALT Act that has resulted in skyrocketing violence that Dave detailed to our corrections officers. Nationally and in New York, the left's dangerous pro-criminal agenda has put criminals in front of law enforcement officers. And, you know, folks, there's something you can do about it in November. You need to know who's on what side of this fight. Are you on the side of the men and women in uniform, whether it's on the street or in the jails? Are you on the side of the lawbreaker, the criminal, the person that's already proven that they don't value a civil society? The left's rhetoric and their policies have been absolutely disastrous, and people are getting hurt and people are getting killed. They're tying the hands of law enforcement while they're coddling criminals. Today, 11 corrections officers and 1 nurse have had their lives put in jeopardy because of what happened in this jail. Probably exposed to fentanyl, but I guess we'll never know. We're here today to bring awareness and attention to this that needs to happen, because these corrections officers, it's far time to stop them from being taken for granted. I have kept all of these officers in my prayers, and I know some of them that were there and responded that day that went to the hospital initially are here with us today. And I'm just so grateful that you're well, and everybody's on their road to recovery. Your families go through hell in this job. They don't know that you're coming home in one piece, and that has to be kept in the minds of all the taxpayers across this community. I'm very proud to represent these men and women in the United States House of Representatives, and we'll keep them at the forefront as we take any vote that involves this. But unfortunately, our problems right now are sitting in Albany, and I'm so fed up with people who have never put on a uniform or had to put themselves in harm's way, destroy and disrespect the laws that are designed to keep people safe and have a civilized society. And what's more infuriating is that what we have seen as a result of these policies, and they are objectively a horrible failure, and yet they continue to double and triple down. Numbers don't lie. There's a 35% increase in violent assaults against our corrections officers since this bad law took into effect. Doing nothing to fix it means one thing. The people that put it in law just don't care. They don't care. They care more about the criminals and those behind bars than they do about those protecting the society. Well, the people standing here today, they do care. And we need to make sure that we need to tell people what's happening so they demand more from people in power. We owe these men and women better, and it's time for real accountability, from the governor on down to the state legislator. All of you in the media need to ask questions of those that voted for the HALT Act. Why did you do it? What was in it for the betterment of all? Ask that question. They don't get asked the question. They want to come home and announce the pork that they brought home, or all sorts of happy nonsense. They don't want to talk about the lousy, terrible votes that are putting our officers' lives in danger every single day. And we need those answers, and those people need to be held accountable, because they nearly had 11 people's blood on their hands last Sunday. Amen. Enough is enough. certainly going to do everything in my power and use my platform to talk about this any single chance I get. At the federal level, we support our corrections officers, and we need to continue to support a law and order agenda. And I know my fellow elected officials standing here today, they stand for that law and order agenda too, and they're going to do the same thing at the state and the local levels. We must act before another officer gets hurt or, God forbid, loses their life. So thanks again for being here and helping us bring real critical attention to what's going on in the walls of this prison. Thank you, and God bless you.
Congressman Nick Langworthy, thank you. Next, we've got the Honorable John Garcia, our Erie County Sheriff. Sheriff?
Thank you, Councilman DiPietro. I'm here today to support my brothers and sisters here at Collins Correctional and to support my brothers and sisters throughout New York State Department of Corrections. You know, speaking to one of the corrections officers, he told me I thought I was going to die. You know, this is an honorable profession to serve the public, to protect and serve. With it comes some good benefits, pension, those that get watered down, working in a job day in and day out, where you get spit on, you get punched in the face, you get bodily fluids such as urine, feces thrown at you, and there's no one held accountable, no repercussions. The HALT Act is equivalent to bail reform. You do whatever you do, and no one is held responsible at the end of the day. It's gut-wrenching. When I heard the news of 11 fellow brothers going down due to an unknown substance at this time, I was sick to my stomach. It's something that I fear every day that's going to happen, not only in one of my two facilities, but anywhere around New York State. And why? Because all the laws that have been passed, all the legislation that has been passed in Albany is pro-criminal. The HALT Act, bail reform, less is more, raise the age. What happened to common sense? What happened to taking care of the good guys? The men and women of corrections, the men and women that work road patrol. How is it that all of a sudden it's flipped? And we have to say, you know, that Assemblyman DiPietro Giglio that's here and many others are pro-police and they back the blue. Are you kidding me? Everybody should be. Those that said defund the police, they better be careful because there might not be any police left to defund if we go down this path. If you see the amount of candidates that are applying for law enforcement, you see the number go down. Why is it going down? Because of the liability, because you might be injured. This is embarrassing. I mean, this is not what this nation, this state, and this county is about. We're about good people and taking care of those in our care inside the facility. But it's not about getting assaulted and spit on. It's not about that. I think it's time to use some common sense. People in Albany that never stepped into a correctional facility are making laws that, again, are helping those that decided to commit a crime. They decided to commit a crime. Now they're inside a facility, they commit another crime. And many times it's against a fellow inmate and nothing could be done. Another huge issue, obviously, is the car fencing. Not only is it getting through our open borders, and we're just trying to keep it away from our citizens, almost 400 people in Erie County are going to be, unfortunately, dead because of these overdoses. But the fact that if one little packet, the equivalent to sugar, a packet of sugar, gets into one of these facilities, all these men and women standing behind me will not be there. That scares the hell out of me. And, all these different rules with visitation. I can't believe that they wouldn't have visitation after all this. Can you imagine 11 of your brothers and a nurse going down, and you're being called in, and you don't know what's going on, and yet, who are you taking care of? You should be taking care of your staff, making sure that their mental health and they're okay. But no, who are they taking care of? The families that are coming in to visit those that are incarcerated. So, I can tell you this. The numbers are going down as far as how many recruits we have. We should be treating our staff like family, and that's what they are. All these men and women behind us, they're brothers, sisters, sons and daughters, husbands, wives, and no, we forget about them every single day. And the legislation that's coming from Albany, again, pro-criminal. It's got to stop. And I can guarantee you this, as Erie County Sheriff, I will continue to ensure that none of this substance get into jail. But I got to tell you, we're handcuffed. We're handcuffed between the jail mail that comes in, between the visitations, expanding visitations, and the beat goes on. So again, I'm here to support my brothers and sisters in Collins, out here safe, and it was a dark day the other day, and thank God we're not here talking about planning a funeral or various funerals. So God bless all of you, and remember this, the majority of the people are still behind us. Don't let the vocal minority get you angry, because we're with you, everybody.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Sheriff. This, one thing I wanted to mention, I've told this to a couple of people. When we heard about this hit me sort of like 9/11. The fact that this is a defining moment. Yes, we've got inmate on inmate, we've got corrections officers, but it seems like as we keep going down that negative, narrow path where the leftists want to coddle these criminals, this is a wake-up call. 12 people. We no longer can stand by. And this is also a wake-up call because it's not just corrections officers. It's police officers. It's first responders. It's firemen. All those who volunteer. They're all facing this. And we've got to pull our heads out of the sand in this state and start showing the respect, admiration that is due these people. And that's my goal. And I want to bring up our Honorable Joe Giglio. He's a state assemblyman with me, a great gentleman who is in law enforcement his entire life. He is the head of the Corrections Committee in Albany for our conference. I'm on that committee with him, and it's an honor to have him here. Joe?
Good afternoon. I'm really impressed that the media is here. Let me start out, there's two things I'd like to talk about. These guys are covered. My brothers behind us who put their life on the line every day, along with their families. They're not alone. Their families are waiting for them to come home. So let's start with Hull. Hull was a disgrace, and it was a lie from the very beginning. They tried to tell you that they were in solitary confinement, as if we locked them in a box in a field like the old westerns and didn't let them out until the evening. All these guys behind you ladies will tell you that they've got more services when they're in a special segregation block than those in general population. And we argued that from here to keep them coming. They didn't have to do Hull. They had already had an agreement with the Civil Liberties Unit. The governor had. What they wanted to was what they do in our business called codify it. So therefore they wanted it in law because they were scared that if anybody else came in, it would somehow be rescinded. If somebody with common sense came in, it wouldn't continue. So they put it in law. It didn't have to be that way. It was a lie from the very beginning by a governor before Cuomo, and they just went along. And as Lieutenant Governor, she never said one word bad about it. In fact, it was a good idea. The second part is the closing. So let me go back to one more thing. This has been part of the dismantling of the entire criminal justice system. Not just one part of it, every part. The problem is, it ends up for these people to make sure that whatever happens still works. And that's just impossible. You know, the problem is, let's talk about closing. I talked to the commissioner, correct, both of them. Last one and the new one. And I said, every time you say you're going to close a facility, you lose members because they don't want to move. They want to stay home. This is where their families are. I'll tell you one quick story. When they closed Gowanda, I had a woman call me that worked there at the facility. She had custody of her granddaughter because her daughter had problems with drugs. They were making her move no matter what. If she had to go to wherever the mid-state facilities were, she would have then had to put her grandchild where the face to them. They would have put their grandchild in foster care. We fought like hell, and thank God doctors did, because they were able to work something out. But although she still had to leave, that she could get somebody to watch her grandchild while she was fulfilling her shifts and doing double shifts in the Middle East. That's the real argument with this stuff. Let me go back to closure. Why in the world would you say you're going to close 5 facilities, 5, in the state of New York? Because if you show that during the budget hearing, the numbers of people now being incarcerated are going back up. They were artificially low because of COVID and the dismantling of the criminal justice system. The things are getting so bad, the crimes are so bad, they have no choice to put them back to the jail. Secondly, we argue this. Here's a law, George Pataki, governor of the state of New York, with the legislature, passed a law in 2005 that said you could not close a facility without a 1-year notice. Both the people that were working there and the community they were working in. Like I said, I live right over the road. I live down the road from Collins. They'll tell you, well, that's okay. And now they do what they did, is they put it in the budget to circumvent it. We wanted to challenge it in court. According to our lawyers, we couldn't because the budget becomes law. But the 2005 law still exists. And ask me one question. What was the fiscal problem this year? We had no fiscal problem. They raised the budget out of sight. Last 3 years, out of sight. We spend more money in New York than anybody in the state of the entire United States. So why would you do that? Instead, as we argue, it's cruel and unusual punishment. Criminals don't get it. These guys get it. Their families get it. They don't know from one day to the next what's going to happen to them. Now they've closed 2 more facilities. Again, totally against the law as far as I'm concerned. And they're still free. Everybody working in these jobs will tell you, we don't know when we might be working in a month or 2 or 3. And then they'll tell you, well, we will recondition and we will sell those facilities. Look across the street, guys. The Wanda's still sitting there empty. I haven't heard anybody saying I want to buy it. So it's all a big lie. David pointed it out. And when you're out, I've been ranker on the corrections committee for a very, very long time. I'm trying to remember how long. And I can tell you one other thing. Not once, the time that I've been the ranker, have I seen legislation, and I have said this to my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, that benefits and protects our men and women in this facility, as opposed to benefits and And they will tell you, we're down in that committee about 10 to 4. There's 4 on our side and 10 on the other. So the best we can do is embarrass the heck out of them and stop bad legislation from going forward, because they worry about it. But we need you. We need the media, because without you, nobody knows what's going on. Nobody pays attention to what's going on at all. They need to know that, because every day our communities are now riskier and riskier. And as I had children used to run here and jog here, I always used to worry about what would happen next, just in case. Just in case. And when you start worrying about what's happening here in rural America, where I'm from, in our small communities, crime is rampant. Sheriff mentioned bail reform, Cactus Val. That's a joke. Also, the fact of the matter is, all our merchants are suffering too. So they can't stay open. You tell me how we survive in rural America when no one is safe and we can't keep our own merchants and businesses open. And we have to worry about my neighbors being able to go to work in the morning and come back to work. So all I can say is, God bless them and God bless you.
Senator Joe Giglio. Next we have Chris Summers. He's the New York State President for NYSCOBA, and I know he traveled at warp speed to get here, so it's great to have him.
First thing I would like to
take a moment for the 11 officers that substance on Sunday that responded and performed life-saving measures on the inmate. We had staff here that are working every day, losing their RDOs, regular days off, mandated 3-4 times a week. But yet, when the call came in, you have people that left their families to come in and help their brothers and sisters. So right there, that shows dedication. We have that throughout the statewide. What Collins faced on Sunday, we are statewide, that is a statewide issue throughout the state. Our officers and sergeants are walking in those facilities on a daily basis, not knowing when they're going to walk out, working 16 to 24 hours, not knowing when they're going to see their family next. And God forbid, what happened here on Sunday, get exposed to something that would cause them to maybe not come home. And that's uncalled for. You have the halt law. All it has done is created more violence on staff and inmate on inmate. The state has taken away all our tools to implement what needs to be taken care of. We can't, there are no more repercussions anymore. That's the problem. Short staff. We're short staffed. We had the governor put a press release in about raising the age to 36. There is no age for 36. There is no age to become a correctional officer. You just have to be 21. 21 years old, apply for the job, and then it doesn't matter. So I don't know what she's talking about on that. That's not going to help matters here. You need to bring back what we did for the protocol. You need to give release to the staff statewide. They are burnt out, they are fed up, and they can't take it anymore. So we are calling that you do that and enact that you go to the protocols that you did during COVID, so these guys and women can have a break and spend time with their family. We hear on the news all the time about spending time with their family. They don't know what that is anymore. They don't get to see that. And that's not fair to them. You have kids asking when are they going to see their mom, their dad. You have mothers and fathers, they're single parents. They have to try to hurry up and find a babysitter because they get mandated at the last minute. That's uncalled for. That's no way to treat employees. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. I would like to acknowledge we do have a couple people here. Honorable Ken Martin from the Town Accountant Supervisor, and we got Senator Gallagher's office. At this point, this concludes our section. If there are any questions, we'll take them now. If anybody has any questions?
I'd like to ask Mr. Summers a question, his perspective. Thank you for your time, Mr. Summers. We're hearing a lot fentanyl, maybe fentanyl. New York State Police the other day handling the investigation are saying they found no hazardous substances at the scene. What are you hearing from administration at the jail? I mean, is there any sort of progress?
I'm not hearing anything from the administration from the jail. All I know is that I'm unknown substance.
So they haven't outright come out and said fentanyl.
No.
What is indicating that it may have been fentanyl?
Well, you had officers use Narcan. You had an officer that's in the back here that had it twice, and he didn't know if he was going to stay alive. They rushed him to the hospital.
What do you make of that lack of any communication to you as your role of representing the people that work in there?
It's uncalled for. There needs to be better communication, and they need to start stepping up and taking care of their employees.
Is there anybody that can say inmates survived? Did the inmates survive? We've still been waiting for information.
Yes, the inmate survived. The staff did their job. They did the life-saving measures, and he is still alive today.
Sorry, they don't tell us nothing for a fact. say that it's a union per se, because none of our members' toxicology reports have come back to tell you that we report that. There's no communication. We don't know what's going on in these prisons. We don't know if it's coming in through the mail, the books. They can spray on synthetic marijuana, it's fentanyl. There's no to have anybody wake up in the morning, kiss their husband or wife, and then do chest compressions on someone and end up meeting a nurse at ECFC? What world does that seem right? It's unheard of. But then to turn around and keep working and not know what happened, or we're not going to have anybody, which laws are laws.
Employees, what's going on.
Exactly.
They don't want you to know. The spin game.
Any legislation you can do to fight this at this point of all the stuff that you just laid out, it's immense. So, but
Yeah, legislation that we can look at right now with Joe Gilliam myself, has dozens of bills to protect our inmates, to protect our corrections officers and protect the facilities. They never see the light of day. We're in the super minority in New York State. So we write these bills and they laugh at them, they put them in a committee, and then they never, for years, they'll never even get voted on. So I wish the press here would go back to our Democrat counterparts and ask them why none of these bills will ever get discussed. I hope that answers your question. We're fighting this. We're putting up the legislation. We're doing press conferences. We're going out meeting with our people. We go to these facilities. We know what's happening. We're trying to fix them, and we get nothing from the supermajority Democrats in Albany. Nothing. Yes. Thank you. So you want to think?
Why don't you know if it was fentanyl or not?
I don't know that question.
If, as a correction officer, if we find a suspicious substance, isn't there a way to test it?
Used to be.
We don't know time frame wise. If we go to BCI and whatever they're testing, that would be on our level. At this point, we couldn't give you a definitive answer why we wouldn't. But like you just said, the only thing we heard came from the press conference, and I can't even verify that because I personally wasn't there, and we don't actually see any of those things. So it's a vague answer. Sorry, but that's the only one we really have at this point. But it is baloney that we can't find any of that stuff out. So I actually understand your point, but these guys live it every single day. You don't know what's happening. So, but that's the best answer we can get.
If any of the officers that were taken to the hospital are here, would they be interested in speaking with us?
They
And
really can't speak on behalf of the incident. I mean, you can ask them. They're more than welcome to. There's docs that follow the media in regards to certain things that happen inside the facility. I can tell you that there are some that are involved here. Thankfully, they're here. Thankfully, they're okay. And going back to what you said, he's going to go home and tell their wives or call their wives from the facility called. I heard a story of the facility calling saying that their husband was being taken to the hospital and the wife's crying. They couldn't say why or what had happened. I mean, this goes on and on. Where this is not just a, unfortunately, this happened Sunday. This happens every day in this facility, every single day. It never goes like the President Summer said. It goes unnoticed. We're disrespected every day, right from the governor down. No one listens to a thing. We can scream to the rooftops. The union itself, we sent a 2-page letter to her begging, basically, some of our officers are getting stuck on doubles and triples. When we say doubles and triples, 16, 24-hour shifts. And then, meanwhile, you got to be at the highest performance you can. They're not the best clientele that you have to be. But yeah, no one can speak on any of that stuff. And furthermore, that letter that I just spoke of, it's been almost a month and we still haven't even heard or received that she received the letter yet. So thanks for all your help.